Oh, I must be.
Let's do it again next year. Well, let's get through this week.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Well, no, good afternoon now. Darren Smith with you live back here on Radio Road, day number 5. With me is the USA Today Sports Columnist. He's a Hall of Fame voter, good guy, mentor, someone I look up to and I read as often as I possibly can. The one and only Jarrett Bell joining me on the ship today. And Jarrett, as you mentioned right before we came on the air, here we are again.
I know, man. This whole Chiefs thing is just, rolling along, man.
Man, I remember when I first had you on, we were talking about this, and for a second I thought you were gonna be like Ralph Parker. This ride is not gonna last long, and here we are. Still years later, we're on this high magic carpet ride right now.
Yeah, and as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Chris Jones, and they've done a great job. Travis Kelce's been there for forever. But you think about some of the guys over the last, say, 4 or 5 years that have been incorporated. That's just as impressive as anything, because in the NFL with the salary cap, you're always having to retool your roster and develop from within and have your draft picks hit and, bring in, and with the Chiefs, you can't bring in a lot of free agents, big money guys. You might get a DeAndre Hopkins, somebody else, and a DJ Humphries along the way. But for the most part, it's draft and develop. And so,
shockingly, it's funny you say that. Like, there's literally been, that I can think of, only 3 big signings that the Chiefs when it comes to free agents.
Right.
Well, no. Well, actually 4. Look at Joe Tooney after the Tampa Bay loss, but then Frank Clark that they signed when they started to run, along with Tyrann Mathieu, and then, as you mentioned, Humphries. But then also after that would have been Justin Reed. Like, those are really the only 4 big free agent signings that they've had. But to your point, Brett Veach has done such a great job when it comes to and the scouting department, finding the talent and playing these rookies. And I tell people a lot of times, what Kansas City does, they draft these rookies, but they play them right away because you have to get maximum value out of them. While Patrick, initially was on his rookie contract, but even on his contract now, like, these players contribute right away. So by the time the playoffs start, they've already exceeded what they've done in 1 year in college, and then with the experience and the Chiefs don't rely so much on them, but they mix them in with the veterans in training camp and preseason. So by the time you get to week 7, week 8, they're off and running.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like the point you make, because when you talk about where we are in the season with preseason and regular season and a couple playoff games, it's like 2 college seasons.
Yeah.
Right. And so these guys are no longer rookies.
Yeah, and the craziest part is that I even mentioned this to Patrick a while back, is like, technically this is his 8th year in the league, 7th year starting, but because he's played, Chris Jones, they've played so many postseason games, they have played more than a regular season worth of games, to where, it might be your 7th year, but essentially you've played eight full seasons worth of football, because your season extends so long. And I want to ask you this. Look, you've covered it all and you've seen it all. You've done it all. This stuff with the referees, and I kind of go back and forth with folk about it, where I don't really buy into it, and obviously a lot of the Chiefs players don't, and the coaching staff don't either. But when you say, do you feel like there's any validity to fans, outcries or whatever about the officiating when it comes to the Chiefs?
I don't. I've talked to some coaches with other teams that still feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think Sean McDermott with the Bills told his players, hey, we're going to get some bad calls.
D'Amico Ryans,
the same thing as D'Amico Ryans. Both of them told their teams that, from what I was told. And so there's that sentiment out there with opponents. But, they might just say that anyway. But to that point, if you look at the statistics, and I've had some research sent to me that shows that it's not valid, and that the Chiefs don't get more calls than others. And Patrick Mahomes doesn't get as many calls by a long shot than Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a weird thing. But I think when you're in these high-profile games and these are, situations that are clutch, maybe not in the midst of a game, go back to week 2, that pass interference. Okay, so there are situations that come down to the final minute where you can see where a flag may have made a difference or not. But the Chiefs are always in these high-profile games. I've been telling people about the Kadarius Toney offside penalty.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs had a whole lot of love from the officials, they would have told Kadarius Toney back up a little bit, dude.
Yep.
So
that was against Buffalo too, 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in that regular season game. And so I think that's one example. I just remember Patrick Mahomes going ballistic on the sidelines.
Yes.
That's the counter argument to the Chiefs get the calls. But here's the other thing, D, and I've written this. When you think about them winning all of these close games, a couple things happen, right? And it's not officials' calls. It's they don't make mistakes, boneheaded mistakes, big turnovers that screw themselves, right? Bill Belichick used to always say how it's not so much that you win the game a lot of times, it's that you don't lose the games. And so the Chiefs play with remarkable poise. And then, oh, by the way, their X's and O's with Andy and Spags. They come up with these plays they hadn't used like all year, and they're springing at the right time. So that's probably more essential. That is more essential than anything when it comes to why they're successful. They've had a little luck too. I mean,
every team should have that.
But guess what? You make your luck. I mean, Leo Chenal blocking a field goal, is that luck?
Denver,
You could say it, but they knew that they had a chance to because
they spotted earlier in the game.
Yeah, exactly. The kicker, Matthew Wright, having to doink, a field goal go in, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a little lucky, but doggone, if you've driven down to inside the 20-yard line, you should make that kick, right? So, I don't buy in.
I chuckle because literally what you said is exactly what I mentioned on a few shows earlier today. Is that it does help that those close games that they won, I think now 17 in a row.
Yeah, one possession.
They've essentially been in almost. I mean, as we've seen, almost every situation, and as you talked about, a lot of teams practice it, they perfect it when it comes to those situational type football. And also, I just said sometimes you're just better coached. Your players, like you said, don't make the boneheaded mistake. They don't pass interfere. On the last, or what would essentially would have been the last play of the game or something when it was 4th and 16 or something like that. And, you knock into the receiver before the ball even gets there.
Right.
I mean, the official has to call that. I mean, it's not like So to your point, I just tell people that, sometimes just have better coaching that the players, when the time comes, they make the plays because essentially you look at the AFC Championship game, that blitz that Spags called, I mean, and Josh Allen, to his credit, still made the throw.
Right.
And it should have been caught. I mean, you had 6 Chiefs players around that play, and nobody was close enough to at least knock the ball and change the course of it. So, so the receiver could have actually caught that ball, and who knows how things would have turned out after that. So, But like you said, sometimes you make your own luck.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. So, before we get to the game, NFL honors were last Thursday night. Any surprises that came out of it for you?
I think the big surprise was that Josh Allen was the MVP after Lamar Jackson was the first-team quarterback.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it going in until after. I didn't realize it until some of the discussion afterward that showed that it had happened before. Not much. It happened with Elway in Montana back in the late 80s. It happened
40 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 30-something years ago. It happened. So, no, it doesn't happen very often. No doubt about that. But it has happened before. It happened with, McNair and Peyton Manning. And so I can say this about that. I don't know if you could make a wrong decision between Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, unless you want to say I want to vote for Saquon Barkley, but it is unusual. And I think the fact, would it have gone the other way? would Lamar have been MVP if Josh Allen would have been the first team quarterback? I don't know. But I think people in the minds of the voters who did that, they probably determined that, okay, Josh Allen was on a team that did not have as many Pro Bowl teammates, all-pro teammates as Lamar Jackson. So that might be the justification there. But again, let's not take anything away from Josh Allen and the incredible season he had, because, I mean, he did ball out as well. I voted for Lamar Jackson, by the way. So let me just say that. Jim Miller, the Sirius radio guy, had Lamar Jackson 4th on his ballot. And I think that's one of the good things that has come out of this, is that the Associated Press for the first time has made the votes public. So you can go and you can see how each of the 50 voters voted in these categories.
And I'm glad you said it, but because sometimes, and I remember talking to one of your colleagues at the paper, it just seems like the voting is just, it's weird. And I don't know, maybe in their words, maybe more diversity is needed in the AP voting. And, I haven't seen the 50, because I'm going to go through it myself. Mm-hmm. But it is hard to with the math, where he has 31st place AP votes, which Lamar put on the first team. How do you vote on first team All Pro, but not MVP? If you feel like he's the best quarterback, or i.e. at that position. And
I think that's a great point, and I think you can make the point and say, well, this guy was the guy that the Buffalo Bills just could not do without, to an even greater degree than the other one. But
what about voter fatigue?
There could be some of that. I think I think that's a great point. People looked at Josh Allen and says, he's been good for a number of years, and maybe this is now when we should do it. And
not taking nothing away from you, because but it's like, okay, now you just give to, because it's almost a participation award in the way that it sounds like you were explaining. And again, not from just how when people say, well, it's time, because look, at the end of the season, Mahomes is still the last man standing, it seems, but and he's only got 2 MVP awards, but he's on the cusp of getting his 4th Super Bowl MVP if they win on Sunday. So again, it throws me off. It makes me just wonder where some. And again, Jim Miller, like you said, voting for 4th place on the MVP ballot, but where did he vote him for when it came to All Pro?
Good point. I will add that, especially since I'm in Kansas City, that I voted for Mahomes with one of my 5, because the votes you have to vote for 5. Yeah, it 1 to 5, and I was one of the few who voted for Mahomes in one of those spots.
We've always,
because we know Saquon got 3rd place, and he was 3rd on probably most of the ballots. But I wanted to show some love for Mahomes, some respect for Mahomes. I mean, he deserves it. It wasn't that it was a charity thing, and
he earned it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Even though he didn't have as big a year statistically as he's had before. But I wrote a column right at the start of the playoffs about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and this was before they even met in the second week of playoffs. And I said, you know what? It almost doesn't matter which of these guys wins the MVP award, because the main thing is, can whoever emerges as MVP beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? And that hadn't happened. So
still hasn't happened.
Not with those two.
Looking at the Hall of Fame, were you surprised that Eli did not get in on the first ballot?
No, I was not. I wasn't either. I wasn't surprised about that. I'm not to the point where I think that he will never get in, but he's not Peyton Manning. Okay. I mean, winning 2 Super Bowls in the fashion that he did, you got to give it to him, right? So he's got 2 Super Bowl MVPs for that. So he's been honored for that. Now, when you talk about Hall of Fame, you're talking about the larger context of your career. And Eli Manning was never we talk about first team All Pro. Eli Manning was never that. Eli Manning led the NFL in interceptions, I want to say 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah.
His win-loss record, 117 and 117.
And literally, the only time he went to the playoffs were those 2 playoff runs that they end up, winning the Super Bowl.
And those were phenomenal. They really were. And he got a Super Bowl MVP for that. So it did not surprise me. I'm a member of the Hall of Fame selection committee, have been on it for over 25 years. And so I'm in the middle of those discussions, and I hear and weigh it and kind of hear the arguments from all sides. So it did not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't get in eventually. But next year, Drew Brees is going to be a candidate. And so you talk about somebody at that same position, Drew Brees has got all these records.
And Larry Fitzgerald too.
Yeah. I was going to get to that, but I just started with the quarterback, right? But that's an interesting dynamic. So you talk about what happened with the Hall of Fame class. There's a couple things. Hey, this is the smallest class in 20 years.
Yeah,
okay.
The coaches didn't know coaches got in, right?
No,
just
Holmgren did not get in, right?
Yeah.
So the process has changed just this year, where the voting was tweaked a little bit. That was going to make it harder to get in, and I don't mind that as a voter. There's a couple things that
hard.
Yeah, I've always said that. I don't know if I've been a big fan of these 7 or 8 member classes. By the same token, I'm also not a fan of recency. I think there's been a recency bias.
Yes.
And one of the things that popped out to me from last night's results, and I wasn't upset about it, was the fact that there were no first ballot guys that got in. Now, Terrell Suggs might not want to hear that. Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Marshall Yanda, a guard that plays an anonymous position, but compare him to, say, Will Shields. I mean, he's got like 9, 10 Pro Bowls in a row. You all pro selection, so he deserves it, right? So that's one of the things that I think will be interesting to track as this new system kind of progresses, because a lot of times guys come in, and you just mentioned Fitzgerald for next year, and I mentioned Brees. Those are guys that can go right to the front of the line and get in the first ballot. And so we will see if it holds. I almost don't think it's going to hold pattern next year with the first ballot guys. But my thing has always been, Darren, that you've got guys that you look at and you say, okay, that's a Hall of Famer. And then you see somebody else come along, oh, yeah, that's a Hall of Famer. Well, if a guy's been waiting for 4 or 5 years and you think he's a Hall of Famer, there's no shame in putting him in. And so there's also no privilege or right or entitlement for somebody to get in on the first ballot. So T.O., for example, was third ballot. Michael Strahan was second ballot. Are those guys any less of a Hall of Famer because of that?
Michael Irvin was a 6th ballot, wasn't it? No.
I don't think he was that. I think he was third.
Third, yeah.
I'm
thinking Shannon Sharp.
But again, to your point, there are guys that have to wait, and there are others that get in on the first ballot without much question. And then there are those who get in on the first ballot, and there are questions. But anyway.
Well, and it's funny, I think about, I literally was doing a Cleveland sports show earlier, and there's always talk, on like Nick Chubb is a Hall of Famer, and I'm like, I'm like, I know some Hall of Fame voters, and I'm like, the injuries, and it's been there, and I know he's a great guy on and off the field. Myles Garrett is obviously still trending in that direction, and then they talk about Joe Bertoni, and I'm like, hey, like you said, but winning still matters too. That which, because again, you look at Eli didn't get in on the first time around. First of all, it is always educational to talk to you, but I will say, as it relates to the last thing about the Hall of Fame, glad to see Sterling Sharp getting in, and it's someone who, as a young kid, when I first started, I was watching football, I watched firsthand the injury, on television when he got hurt playing for the Packers, and that was.
Yeah, so he had 7 years, and 7 great years where he was dominant, led the league in receiving 3 times, was a triple crown guy. So
and the only receiver that was better here was Jerry Rice at that time.
Exactly. And so, I look at Sterling Sharp. I mean, it took 26 years for him to get in. And I look at him as a guy kind of like Terrell Davis and even Tony Baselli, guys who didn't have the longest careers, but you knew they were dominant when they played. And then they had injury issues that cut those careers short. Gale Sayers, going way back, was the same guy where he was, 6 years. And so you have cases like that. So, yeah, it was good to see Sterling Sharp get in. And I'll never forget what Shannon Sharp said about his big brother when he got in.
Yeah,
like, I'm in Hall of Fame, and I'm not even the best player in my family. That sticks with you, man.
And when that comes, when that comes around in August, Lord, it's probably not going to be a dry tear, dry face in the crowd, because the story is going to be told from Shannon Sharp inducting his brother in. Before I let you get out of here, your thoughts on Sunday's games and your bold prediction for the game.
Yeah, I got to do the bold prediction.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
but no, I don't know. I want to say Pacheco is due for a big breakout game, but Kareem Hunt has been so good for them, and it makes a lot of sense, even if Pacheco is has the hot hand, to have that 1-2 punch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look at. I think maybe my bold prediction, as I said here, I might think that Patrick Mahomes will rush for more yards than Jalen Hurts.
Oh,
yeah, that would have been even bolder if you said that against Josh Allen. But this time of year, Patrick, and
because he had that big run, and he had that big run 2 years ago. That
and there's no next week. Right. And so if you're talking about putting it all out in the right moment, Patrick can do that. And he showed it in the championship game where.
And he's healthy too. So,
But I really found it fascinating what he said about his 10-yard touchdown run against Buffalo in the AFC championship game, where he said that look was there all season. And all season they handed the ball to the running back who ran left. And then that time he decided to pull it down and go the other way, and it was there. But he said it was there like all season. But
not once but twice.
He wasn't going to waste that. Yeah, it was like he wasn't going to waste that in week 6.
You can't waste on the regular season. Again, like you said, there is no tomorrow. I think my biggest, if I had a bold prediction, would be the Chiefs scoring in the 40s. Because look, everybody complained about them not scoring more than 30 all season. Then against Buffalo, I think 32-29. And people think I'm crazy about this, but and of course you were there. I felt that the Chiefs were on the verge of a blowout of Buffalo in that first quarter because they stopped Buffalo from scoring on the opening drive. They came down and just walked right down and scored a touchdown.
Right.
Buffalo came back down. Chiefs defense held them to a field goal, 7-3. Kansas City was just marching right back down. So I'm like, oh, man, they can't stop this offense.
Right.
They get down within the red zone, I think maybe 15, 17-yard line. They do something that they shouldn't have done, which was just doing
some razzle-dazzle,
and he fumbles the football.
Right.
They recovered, and then they marched down the field and they score. And instead of it being 14-3, now it's 10-7. It's a whole brand new ball.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And Chiefs, I think they had the lead going into the half. So it's like, wait, you come? No, I think it might have been. I can't remember, but then they come back to start the second half, and they were 3-0. I'm like, y'all spent the whole 30 minutes inside the half, and this is the best y'all come up with. So I just think that they get a chance to right all the wrongs, and if they can, my thought process is whether they get the ball or not, but if they're able to go down and just score, whether it's a long drive or short drive, I think the Chiefs will, and like you said, there is no tomorrow. You gotta give a chance. I see them trying to make sure that DeAndre Hopkins and Kareem and Hollywood Brown all get touches within the concept of the game plan, saying to give them a chance to try to make some big plays and, and if possible, get them all in the end zone because everybody else has pretty much scored before.
No. And if it comes down to crunch time, we know Kansas City is just so poised when it matters the most. And I think that's the big edge for them again, because, it would be a surprise if this game did not come down to the fourth quarter, the last drive or two.
Yeah, right? and the crazy thing is for me, I've had people think it's going to be a low-scoring game, 23-20. I just don't. To me, it's just too. taking nothing away from Vic Fangio and even Steve Spurrier. And I love Steve, but it's just, to me, it's just too much firepower offensively to where it's like somebody's going to be just due. Like either Saquon breaks out for a big run that gets that sideline and that fan base rattle, and then how does Mahomes come back and respond? Doesn't have to be a quick hit, but if you just come back down, okay, we got to come back down and score now. Okay, now we got a chess match. And for me in our position, that's going to give me okay. Now I'm gonna sit back like, okay, all right, now we got us a game. Yeah. Now the biggest thing for most of that I'm looking forward to is halftime. Kendrick Lamar and see how the press box reacts to his commentary. And for the people who do not remember, I love you telling the story because man, it's awesome. You got a chance, covering one of the Super Bowls where Prince played in the rain, and the Thursday, I believe it was, of the media row week, radio row. Prince came in. Well, yeah, you told me. Prince is coming into the press conference, and he performed a concert.
Yeah,
tell us about that because you were there.
Yeah, that was the best press conference during Super Bowl week that I've ever been to.
I've been waiting for somebody to just duplicate that, whether Kendrick or Rihanna, something like. I don't want to question. I want you to perform.
Yeah. So another memorable halftime show press. I didn't go to the one this week, but another one that I went to one year was Stevie Wonder, and he had a press conference and he took questions and so on and so forth. And that was just awesome to be in his presence. Well, Prince comes and does a press conference, right? And the guy from the NFL, I don't know if it was Brian McCarthy or somebody from the league who's conducting the press conference, they're like, okay, we've got this going on halftime. Prince will not be taking any questions, right? And Prince is there on stage, and then all of a sudden he just starts playing, and the band, and they open up the curtain, and the band is there, and the whole thing. That was pretty hot. And he went on for about 5-7 minutes, and that was that. He did not take questions, but he left his mark. He made a statement. With his music.
Statement. Now I was wondering, even then, was that recorded? Was that because I don't know.
Where is it? I know.
Yeah,
somebody has to have it.
God,
I don't know. Great question. Man. I've not looked for it, but somebody has to have that because otherwise you would think I'm lying. We need to see this.
That part is true. Now and again, you saw it on television. I've watched the YouTube version hundreds of times. But what was it like seeing him play in that rain, especially when it came down to Purple Rain and all the lights started turning? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. You almost didn't want the game to continue. You kind of was like, can we get another song or two? But you're right. When you talk about the fact that it's Prince and Purple Rain and it starts to rain, my goodness, So that was pretty cool.
And one thing, you also covered the Super Bowl where Michael Jackson performed the halftime.
Yeah, that was at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena around 93 or something like that.
And that was literally because of what Keenan Ivory Wayans and In Living Color did the year before. That was like their response because they took so many viewers away that they had to come back and hence that's how we got the halftime show.
Yeah, we get better and better with these halftime shows, man. So that's become as big of a part of the Super Bowl as anything because you have so many people, so many viewers who are casual fans or non-fans. And, I know my daughter's like 25. She's grown up, in dance and fine arts and theater and all that. She doesn't give a squat about football, but, she's going to tune in to the entertainment.
Are you shocked that they haven't tried to get Taylor Swift to perform?
Yeah, it almost seems
or do you think they may have asked and just like, no, I'm good?
Yeah. It's probably after Travis retires and listening to him this week.
Hey, my man, like I got to.
That was a stunner.
Well,
to hear him say that. I mean,
right off of me. Well, I've asked before, but the crazy thing is that his thing is, if they were to win, he wants to go for 4 people. Like, why not?
Right.
And if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but I could have sworn in the offseason they did some stuff with his contract where I think they either extended it or did some stuff. So it's like, why would he leave?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you got the money, Amazon, and some other stuff, but I mean, if you still feeling it, and the thing is, with all the talent that they have around him, it doesn't have to. It doesn't. It's not like a lot. You get a lot of cardio, but you're not having a lot of hits or wear and tear on your body.
Yeah, and they know as hard as the Chiefs prepare and have one of the most grueling training camps in the NFL. A guy like Travis Kelce knows how to pace himself over the long grind. So yeah, he's going to get his work in the offseason and in training camp. But as the season goes on, he's going to manage his body. And so yeah, health is always a major factor in some of the things that you can train for and you still encounter. But yeah, when they get to January, I got win or go home. Yeah, I think that's part of the the secret sauce for Travis Kelce in terms of this time of year. So hey, that may be the bold prediction. Travis Kelce, blows up again, but he had the great game against Houston to start the playoffs, and so fully expected he will be making his mark with Taylor in the box.
Kansas City sports fans, trust when I tell you, you should be honored to be listening to me just sit back and just talk and listen to this man, Jarrett Bell. He is a Hall of Fame. He is a Hall of Fame person within himself because he got the Hall of Fame award a few years ago. So so this man's a Hall of Fame person a few times over, as well as one of the best sports writers that you will ever come across. Make sure you have your subscription to USA Today Sports. Just trust me, come whether it's online or Monday, you get the hard copy. You're going to see a lot of Jarrett Bell articles. Make sure you read it, treasure it, and if the Chiefs win Sunday, I can't wait to see what type of three-peat article he has in store for you all. So hopefully you all enjoy listening to him. I love talking to him, whether it's here or just in the press box. When he comes to Kansas City or we're, playoffs or whatever, this is the man. So if you ever get a chance to see him or meet him, make sure you say, hey, I saw you on the ship with Darren Smith, and I know you because it feels like you know him. So, and trust when I tell you, he's a great guy. If I do something wrong, he gets on me. So, I'm about 40-something years old, but I'm never too old to be disciplined if need be. So I appreciate him. He always cheers me with Jarrett Bell. Thank you so very much, man.
My pleasure,
appreciate
my
you, man. I'll see you, of course. We got the NABJ task force stuff tomorrow, and maybe
see you around.
Lee Steinberg, but definitely see you Sunday. I'm gonna get there early because we got company coming. So,
all right,
I'm gonna get there early. Thank you so much. We'll be back after this time. I'll be joined by rookie, former NFL running back Ricky Williams in just about a half hour. Be back here on the show.
All right.